I'm Zev Kane, WRTI's classical program director. I'm here with pianist Víkingur Ólafsson, joining me from his home in Reykjavik, Iceland, in advance of his much anticipated recital at Marian Anderson Hall on Thursday, March 19th. Víkingur, it's a thrill to meet you. Thanks so much for your time.
I'm so happy to meet you here. I sound a little bit more that like Tom Waits than I'd like to, but I'm feeling good and I can't wait for the concert.
Awesome. Let's start with your recital. You're playing a program based on your most recent album, which is centered around Beethoven's Opus 109 Sonata, paired with works by Bach and Schubert. How did you come up with the concept behind this program and what ties these pieces together?
Yeah, these last three Beethoven sonatas, so Opus 19, 110, 111, they're almost always played together, so to say, and that's a great thing to do. And I was actually going to do it, so I was going to do a very conventional program for once. But as I was working on that and preparing to record it for Deutsche Grammophon and all of that, I really started to wonder about it and ask myself if Opus 109, which is the title piece of this program, whether that should necessarily always be the opener of an album or of a recital program. I mean, these are like three sisters, these three sonatas, and they sort of get more and more dramatic. And Opus 111, with that famous last movement, the aria, the second movement, it sort of takes over. But I actually think Opus 109 very much deserves to be a destination rather than a departure point. So I started looking around Opus 109 and wondering what would go with it and how I could sort of create a little world around that incredible sonata. And I came up with this idea of having another Beethoven sonata from a similar time, 6 years earlier, the E minor sonata, Opus 90, and then this almost completely neglected gem of a piece, the E minor sonata of Franz Schubert, who was only 20 years old when he wrote it. And I mean, it's an incredible work. And it's fascinating to think that Schubert and Beethoven were living in the same city of Vienna. Certainly, young Schubert would have gotten hold of anything the great master Beethoven would publish. And I imagine he would know the Opus 90 sonata that's early in this program quite well. And in the second movement of that sonata, Beethoven's Opus 90, you really hear, in my opinion, kind of the seeds of Schubert. It's an unbelievable way of thinking about writing for the piano. It's as melodic and just, I don't know, cantabile bel canto as it gets. It's an incredibly vocally conceived way of imagining piano writing and piano sonata. And so Schubert 2 years later writes his own, 3 years later, his own sonata in two movements. And I ask myself, why is this never played? Especially as I really do think that this is one of the great, great works of Schubert's youth. So there we had these three sonatas, and I very much think that Opus 109 uh, could not have been written without a piece like the Goldberg Variations of Johann Sebastian Bach. That's a piece actually I played last time in recital, and the variations in the third movement, the last movement of Opus 109, it's a piece in three movements. The variations they take up more time than the first and second movement combined. And they are like the Goldbergs, an aria, and the aria, like the Goldbergs, is a saraband in structure. And you have so many things that come from the Goldberg variations, including the dramaturgical beauty that is the return of the aria at the end of the variations, just like Bach does so famously in the Goldberg variations. And this is the only time in Beethoven's life where he actually does this, brings the aria back and it brings the theme back at the end of variations. He writes like 40 variations or more even in his entire life, but he never does this. But this is where he does it. And he's just gone from all these things that I hear completely differently now that I'm playing them, having toured the Goldberg variations for a year. So I thought this is ideal. And why not pair it with Bach? And since I found myself in the key of E major and E minor, I picked up the sixth partita, my favorite partita anyway, of Bach, the most monumental suite he ever wrote. It's an incredible work, and I put it there, and I do think it changes at least the way I hear the other pieces that came later. And it's very interesting to have Bach in that context. So that's the conception.
What a wonderful answer. I want to stick with Beethoven for just another moment. You made a lot of promotional videos around this album, and you said two things in some of the videos that really struck me. The first is something I think your mother told you. She said that you have to feel Beethoven in your stomach when you play him. And the second is something that you said. You said there are multiple answers to all the questions in late Beethoven. And so taken together, it seems that you're suggesting that you have to both feel Beethoven in your gut, but also always be searching. Am I wrong to conflate these ideas? Can you say a little bit more about
No,
what
you
you
are
meant by
so
those?
right. You're so right, and I love the way you framed that. No, I mean, I think basically with Beethoven, going to my mother's remark, it's funny to talk about that, but she's a piano teacher, and this is like many years ago, but it always stayed with me. When you play Beethoven, you are a little bit a guest in his world. When you go through these sonatas, these incredible, I don't know, whirlwinds of emotion and human drama. It's really his, when you play the Pathetic Sonata, when you play the Fifth Symphony, the Moonlight Sonata, all those famous works, Appassionata, you're going on his journey, on his terms almost, when you play Bach in sort of contrast, he invites you very much to discover you are there kind of on your own terms more, and he creates a framework for that. With Beethoven, he grabs you. Oh, I'm not going to say by the throat, but he really takes you and he holds you. And I mean, if there is a measure in Beethoven's music that doesn't have a sort of significant tension one way or another, he pointed out to me, because then I don't know it. I think even the most tranquil music of Beethoven has that yearning and has that tense drama to it. He's never quite at ease, is he? And when he wants to be at ease, he's trying to be at ease, but he's not really at ease, and you can always feel it. He's not a carefree guy. So that's very interesting. When you play those sonatas, you really go, in a way, you get to be a guest in his immense psychological world.
So is each performance trying out a new answer to those questions, or do you eventually sort of come to settle on a set of answers and attempt them over and over?
Well, actually, I play this recital. I just played it now in Paris, Brussels, Rome, and Barcelona, and just like 3 days ago. These past, I did four of them in a row in Europe, and those were four totally different concerts. And what happens is that you are having a dialogue, obviously with yourself, and however you're feeling that day and wherever you are, but you're also having a dialogue with that specific audience, with that specific instrument that's on stage with you, that incredible machine that's the grand piano, with just made from more than 12,000 parts of metal and wood, that is in such, and that instrument is itself in so much dialogue with temperature, humidity, change temperature, humidity 1% up or down. Piano feels it, and the pianist feels it. And then, so in that sense, we are like the princess that's sleeping on the bean. If you know that fairy tale, you,
Sure.
you you feel every little nuance, every change. But you're also having a dialogue with the hall. So you play the piano, you play a note. The note reverberates the strings on the soundboard, shoots into the back of the hall, comes back to you from the back wall. That's the feedback. That's the dialogue with the architecture. And so you're having all those dialogues at the same time, and you're certainly having a dialogue with Beethoven. I mean, that's the most important dialogue. And that's a meeting that takes place sort of over time and, space, through the centuries. It's the only form of time travel that I know to work, to be honest with you. And it's a very interesting thing. And that conversation with Beethoven, that changes every night. So I do play these variations and these sonatas and all of this. I play it totally differently. So if people listen to the album a lot and then they expect to hear the album, just in a live concert, I don't want that to happen. I want them to hear something new in the concert.
You experience synesthesia. You associate specific colors with specific pitches. For example, for you, E, which is the dominant key of the album, is green, right? And C is white, D is brown, F is blue. This is something so interesting because I don't experience this. When did you first discover that this is something you were experiencing, and sort of how does it manifest?
Not that many people have it, but still quite a few people do have this strange condition, synesthesia. Um, just oddly enough, my first piano teacher had synesthesia. And so her name was Erla Stefansdottir, a wonderful woman. She's now passed. And she, I remember when I was six or something, seven, talking about the music in those terms, talking about F being blue or D being brown or, everything that you so correctly stated. And I remember her saying, no, but F is not blue, F is red. Don't you hear that? And that was the strangest sort of conversation, because she might as well have told me that the grass is not green, that the grass is red or something, or the grass is yellow or purple or something. That's like how logical it is to us who have this condition. So everybody has their own color map. I think it's actually quite. I don't think it's so spectacular, but I can totally understand how weird it must sound if you don't have it. But to me, it's just pure logic. It's just a connection. I think neural connection that's formed at some point in your early development if you're exposed to a lot of music. And perhaps I was hearing my mother teach the piano at home, a piece in E major and E minor. Who knows? As I was looking at a picture of a frog or something, and maybe that connection between memorizing the pitch and memorizing that connection with the color, maybe that's something that happens. But nobody really knows the answer. It's a beautiful little mystery.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I was going to ask if you think, there's so many famous musicians who've had synesthesia, including, Sibelius and Duke Ellington and Messiaen and Scriabin, probably the most famous example. And I was going to ask if you think it's absolutely crazy that they associate different colors with keys than you do. But you
Yeah,
you answered that
totally,
for me.
totally.
Um, 2 years ago, you achieved this amazing feat. Your recordings collectively achieved 1 billion streams, and since then, I'm sure millions more have been added, probably several thousand from me alone. I'm a big fan.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
this is really rare territory for a classical artist. What is it like knowing that at any given moment, people around the world are probably listening to your music? And is connecting with people via the medium of streaming something you think about when you approach recording and performance?
I have to say it's a little bit surreal, unreal. So you can play Carnegie Hall for 3,000 people or something, um, and at the same time during those 2 hours, just on Spotify, you will have had maybe 100,000 people listening to you. So that's a weird thing, and I don't quite understand it yet. But what I do take from it is that never before in history have so many people been listening to the music that we love, and we have to be grateful for that. And it's interesting to be able to see it so concretely. And I'm just one guy with my piano recordings. Imagine if you take the whole classical ecosystem and add all of us combined, and there are more people than me that have great success with streaming. Just imagine if you would then tell to Ludwig van Beethoven or Schubert or Bach or whatever, yeah, just yesterday in the world, Mr. Bach, you had 45 million streams. Like, I mean, it's nice actually stream. Bach actually means stream in German. Bach is like a little brooklet, like a river.
Right.
So it's kind of nice that Bach is actually the highest streaming classical musician, I mean, composer of all time. But yeah, I don't know. But I have to just say, coming from Iceland, from a country of like 400,000 people, and never having imagined any of this, it's just something to be immensely grateful for. And it's not just really about me; it's more about the music. That the music is so relevant today, and because we burn for it, and I'm playing it, you're communicating it. So we have to remember, with all the doom and gloom of the world and the current political discussion, to remember that the music is doing well.
You just mentioned Iceland, and maybe we can finish in that area. The visual language of your album incorporates Iceland. We're talking on St. Patrick's Day. I'm wearing green. Green is the color of E, which is the sort of color you associate with the album. And I couldn't help but laugh a little bit when I saw, the close up of the album's cover is a close up of your face, and you're lying down on some bright green moss. But later, you can see a picture of the photo shoot that you did for that, where you are, actually in the middle of this gigantic lava field that's covered with this moss, I believe somewhere in rural southwestern Iceland. How did you come up with the idea for that concept? What inspired that location?
Oh, it's so funny. This cover, people love to discuss it and they love to hate it or love it, but there's a lot of haters
I
too.
love it. I think it's
I
great.
thought it was so funny. I was like, wow, people really, really hate me. But,
Yeah.
I mean, actually, like the moss, it's a timeless thing and it sort of grows on this lava field, and it really manages to bloom so incredibly beautifully and so saturated green, really. And it grows on the most impossible surface. And in that sense, I thought with Beethoven and all of his
Mm.
roughness, to have this poetry that he brought to the world. I saw a little connection there, but that was just for myself. I mean, I of course just wanted to have a green cover, and I thought there was something about the kind of texture of the moss that It just felt fun to play with. And I thought, why not listen to the moss? Why not listen to, that's what I'm doing. I'm not like waiting, I'm not sleeping there. I'm actually listening to the message of the moss. But it's just it's a little playful thing. In classical music, many people don't want you to do a playful cover like that. They don't want you to have the confidence or to take that space. So I learned that, but actually I rather enjoy all those comments. It's also just very nice to be in Iceland because that country has so many ankles that is wonderful to work with. So this is just one of them.
Well, maybe we can finish there. Because Iceland is so high. I've never been, but it's very high on my list of places to visit. And as I was researching for this interview, I fell down some YouTube rabbit holes, and now I want to go more than ever.
Oh, come, please come.
What's one thing that tourists do in Iceland that you think is a little bit overrated? It's a tourist trap. And what's one activity or destination in Iceland that you think is totally underrated that you'd recommend?
Okay, I mean the tourist trap is, should I say the Blue Lagoon? Because I went there recently and I thought it was so overcrowded, and I just didn't enjoy it at all. Having said that, it's like the most important destination in
Right.
Iceland, and it's quite arrogant of me to actually say this because people come from there and they somehow seem like their lives have been changed. So obviously I still recommend it for whatever reason, but it's not for me. So sort of personally speaking, I'd say that's not on my list. I think the most underrated thing is to go off the beaten track. Don't, like the country is huge. It's like the size of England, but we are only, 400,000 people. And so you have so much space. Go off the beaten track, go hiking on a route which you don't really know where it's going to take you, and just find that space when you are completely alone with nature. There aren't many countries that I know, if any, that really have that in so much abundance that you have here. The ability to be with yourself and to be with nature. And bring your good clothes. It can be windy here, but you don't really come for the weather. You come for the atmosphere.
Wonderful. Pianist Víkingur Ólafsson joining us ahead of his March 19th performance at the Kimmel Center's Marian Anderson Hall. Víkingur, thank you so much for your time today, and safe travels to Philadelphia. We'll see you very soon.
Yeah, see you in Philadelphia. I can't wait. It's going to be fun.